Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Love Unplugged. I'm your host, Jessica, and today we have a very special guest. Please join me in welcoming Sophie Burke, CEO and founder of award-winning Vancouver-based design practice, Sophie Burke Design. I'm a huge fan. I love your work, so I'm so honored to be able to chat with you today. So thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure. I've been looking forward to speaking to you.
Amazing. So let's start like way back at the beginning. So, can you walk us through your education and your career leading up to becoming an interior designer? And was this always your end goal? Like, was this always your dream to become an interior designer?
You know what? It kind of was. I knew from a young age that I loved interior design. I didn't know exactly what that looked like, but I remember doing those aptitude tests in high school, and I would often get interior design would be where I would land. So I did sort of have that in the back of my head, and it's interesting to me because now I have kids in sort of senior years of high school going through those same things. And I think I was lucky to know back then that that's what I wanted to do. But I didn't, right after high school, I didn't go straight into a design program. I went to UBC and did my undergrad there. And during that time, I worked a little bit part time for a few different design firms in the city, just as super junior, doing just basically office stuff, not really doing a ton of design, but getting a feel for it and knowing that I really did love it. And then I moved to London and studied design there and ended up staying there, getting a job and working there, and fell in love with design. And in London, it was just an incredible place to be studying and practicing design. So, yeah, I guess I just had that trajectory in my mind, and I'm happy that it worked out.
What was it about interior design at such a young age that intrigued you? Like, I know interior design came up for me in those aptitude tests as well, and I loved interior design back then, but I don't know how I ended up where I am today, to be honest. But like, how did you stick with that? Because a lot of the times, a lot of the conversations that I've had with people on the podcast and offline, it's never what they went to school for. It's never what they originally started off thinking that they were going to have as a career. The majority of the time, they're doing something completely different.
Yeah, that's true. And I see that with lots of people I know. But for me, I think it somehow mixes what I love to do. I think I really like the creative process. I'm inspired by things I see. I remember when I first moved to London and just even walking down the streets and seeing all this creativity, it would make me feel energized. And so I really love that creative process. And it's just, I guess, the way my mind works. And I like making spaces feel nice. I'll walk into a space and it's kind of just all I can see is what works about this space. What do I love about it? What doesn't work in certain spaces? My family will laugh at me because I'll go somewhere and I'll start changing the lighting. I'll bring like a lamp from, like this hotel we were at. I would bring a lamp from our bedroom down to where we're all having dinner because I can't stand the overhead lighting. So it just feels like how it's the lens through which I see the world. So it just kind of pulls me along. And I'm I did do I was a worked in flower shops during university as well, and I think it's just this idea that you can put things together creatively and make something beautiful. So that's just always been a part of, even as a young kid, I would go outside and pick flowers and make flower arrangements, and I just have always loved that idea that you can make something beautiful.
That's amazing. Well, I'm very happy that you found your calling and so early on in life. Like, that's amazing.
I know.
Now,
I know.
there's there's working as an interior designer for a studio or a firm, and then there's running your own business. So
Mm,
very, very different things. What inspired you to become your own independent interior designer with your own team?
craziness. But I think, sadly, I think I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I like this idea that I can be my own boss and make my decisions and be in charge of my own trajectory. So I think, but truly, I didn't set out to start my own business. I moved back from the UK and I was looking around for where I was going to work and applying to different firms. And during that time, a few people who I knew here contacted me and said, I just have this little project. Can you help me out with it? So truly, my business grew very organically. And it wasn't that I had these grand plans and a big business plan that I went to a bank with and sort of set out in my mind. I think that would have been really intimidating for me. And I'm not sure I would have taken that leap. But because it grew very organically, I took on these projects thinking, oh, this is good. I'll just do this while I'm looking for a job. And then, I needed to register as a business in order to do certain things. And so I went through that process, and it all happened very organically. And then I grew very organically. So that's sort of the story behind it. I have a lot of, I'm kind of in awe of people who just say, I'm going to start this business, and they put all the pieces in place and launch a business. That feels really brave to me. And I didn't do that route. And I think it was easier for me just because I was doing it almost like, oh, well, if this doesn't work, I'm still looking for a job. So it was less scary. And it didn't feel like I was taking as big of a risk as I think a lot of people do,
Yeah,
if that
you
makes
kind of
sense.
chipped away at the whole process of building your own business as
Yes.
you needed things,
Yeah.
depending on what you had coming in.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I don't
Yeah,
know if
that's a
it's
great
good.
way of doing it.
It certainly just seemed less scary to me, but I think it's not necessarily, I wouldn't really recommend it. I think it's better to have a plan and then start executing your plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I can go both ways.
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
seen it both ways. Yeah, I think yeah. There, I mean, from an operational perspective, and somebody who's like very much a planner and like checklists and like all that type of stuff, I definitely see that point of having all of your ducks in a row. But then sometimes I find with certain types of individuals that can like stifle them in a way of having too much structure and too much like to do, and like the whole thing of it becomes overwhelming to them, and then it blocks them from even moving forward. So I think it just depends on the type of person, and I think you found your way of doing what you needed to do in order to get to where you're at today.
Yeah. I think also it's confidence. And I think back then I didn't have a lot of confidence. So, you know, you need to be able to say, I can do this. And once I launch this business, it's going to work. And I just think I lacked that confidence at the time. So
Yeah,
that's something that is too bad, but it's fine in the end. I think having some confidence in yourself can also go a long way in launching a business for sure.
absolutely. And that takes time to build. It's not something that you just like get, right? I was talking about this with one of my therapist, not one of my therapists, my therapist. I'm like, I need to develop more confidence. And she's like, okay, well, let's talk about confidence. She's like, and we kind of like broke it down. And essentially, confidence is like competence.
Yes,
You know your
exactly.
stuff, right? And it
Yeah.
takes time for you to get to that place. You can't just
Yeah.
immediately have that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's totally understandable.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I like that. Confidence equals competence.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, stems from that. That's very
Let's
true.
talk. Yeah. Let's talk about London. How old were you when you moved to London initially?
I was 23.
That's young. Was that
Yeah,
scary for you taking that big leap?
not really. I don't know. I was just so excited about it. I was ready for a change. I was ready for that to be in part of my life. I knew I wanted to do design, and so I was just super excited about it. And then when I got there, it sort of exceeded all my expectations too. And so I had been to London earlier as a teenager, just for a couple of days, and walked around the city and really fell in love with it then and thought this is a place where I want to come back. And so it didn't feel, surprisingly, that didn't feel all that scary. And yeah, I was so happy to be there. It was fantastic. And I
Amazing.
loved
So while
studying design. I loved delving into it. I loved going to the showrooms there, and I just liked the whole process. It was exciting.
the industry there is probably quite a bit more advanced than us here, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. I mean, when you think about interior design in the UK, it's something I think they really value. And there's these
Mhm.
historic firms that have been around forever, like Colfax and Fowler, and they it's kind of rooted in their traditions there. And you think about they have there's so much history to it. Think about like these floral chintzy fabrics that are not necessarily in fashion now, but there's a whole industry built around it in London. And in fact, my first place that I lived in North London was literally down the street from a very historic storied wallpaper manufacturer, Cole and Son. And I would walk past it on my way to the tube every morning to go to design school. And one day in design school, we were actually doing a tour of the factory, and they were still, printing wallpaper by hand, the blocks, the print blocks, and hanging it over racks. And that was literally down the street from where I lived. And so I think it's just, yes, in London or in England, there's a history of design. And so it was fun to be experiencing that.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine. Now, you had quite an incredible opportunity when you were in England. Apparently, you worked with the legendary Terence Conran at Conran and Partners.
I did. Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. It was so fun. I couldn't believe it when I got the job. I had applied with this other girl who I worked with at the time, and I got picked, and I felt so terribly that she didn't, but I was so excited. And it was an incredible place to learn. So much experience there with the people who really, really talented, amazing architects and designers, and people from all over the world. I worked next to a guy from Japan, and I had a great friend who was from Paris, and I worked on a team with a woman who was from Berlin. And it just, that kind of global perspective, I think, brought a lot to it. And for me also, I think it was very valuable when it came time to running my own business, having worked at a big firm where they have lots of systems in place, and the process is very linear. There's a path, and it's steps that you follow. And that was really great for me to learn from and see this is what it takes to run a bigger business, is you have to have this mechanics behind the scenes of processes that people follow and systems, so that things can run in an organized linear fashion. In a creative world where things can be more loose, you still need that very linear path behind it all, driving things forward. And so that sort of degree of professionalism was really beneficial for me to learn from, I think.
You just spoke to my heart.
Did I? It was
Yeah, I mean,
eye opening and so fantastic to see. I really, really, I liked that part a lot. And then I also there, it was quite a collaborative process. We always worked in teams because the projects were big. And so I think, and I don't know if it stems from that, but I really enjoy that collaborative team type process. in the design world. And even still, we work almost every project. There's a team of us in my office, and I think you get a better result when you have more people's brains on the project, and that collaborate collaboration is fun and ultimately rewarding, I think. So I think I learned that there too. This idea that we'd work three or four of us on a project and bounce ideas off of each other and take advantage of one person's skill set and another's good at another thing. That was really nice to be a part of.
That's amazing. I mean, it only makes your client experience even better and your delivery even better when you're working as a team and you're complementing each other's skill sets and
Yeah,
creating a well-rounded unit that
yeah,
supports that client and their vision, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love
And
that.
it is a complicated process. And so one person isn't going to be good at the entire thing. So I think, yeah, it's nice. But even just on the design side, collaborating, not even just on the execution. Like, of course, someone's going to be better at CAD drawings and someone's better at project management and all of that. But even on the design, it's nice to collaborate on that too, I think.
That's amazing. I love that. Are there any other ways that that experience, that opportunity impacted you in your career following that time in
Um,
London?
Working at Conrad and Partners, I think, I mean, we were doing some really high level jobs and working in big cities. I got to work on projects in Tokyo, Paris, New Delhi. And so that was interesting because you really see the difference. Like when we did this, we were working on a hotel project in New Delhi, and there the level of craftsmanship is incredible. So being able to design knowing that there's the craftsmanship behind it to support it. So thinking about what is available on a local level and designing to that place was interesting. And then I think the other thing there is this idea of melding new and old. We'd often work on buildings that had lots of history and then trying to overlay on top of that a little bit of a more contemporary sensibility, but referencing and being sympathetic to the history of the building. So I think this sort of timeless look where nothing looks like you can't be comfortable in it because there is a reference to time and history and place. So yeah, just that the mindset of the design teams there was interesting to learn from. And they're also incredibly precise and really talented people. So just learning from them was, there was one guy I worked with on a team who was so deliberate and so careful, and that really came through in all his designs, and I found that really inspiring. So that type of thing.
That's amazing. Put yourself in rooms that have people that are more experienced or, have been around for longer or smarter than you and stuff. And the amount of learnings that you're going to have are going to be like next level that you can take away with you to elevate your own career path.
Yeah, yeah, and I still feel embarrassed when I think back to one of my first team meetings there, and I was so green, and just this older designer, kind of the two older women on the team sort of took me under their wing, and they could see, I think, that I was floundering a bit, and just they pulled me in and kind of gave me a clear path, like, okay, these are your next steps, this is what you're doing. And having a mentor is something I think is so valuable. Like, you just sort of need to show someone, don't get lost in the swirl down below, like, come along, here we go, this is what you're going to do next. And so I really valued that. And I think I like to think, in my own business, I think that mentorship is really important. Like, the senior designers are leading and showing the way and taking a bit of time to say, this is how it's done. And that's the only way you're going to learn in this business anyways. A lot of it is just learning on the job. You can't necessarily be taught all of it. So I think that those kind of teachable moments and taking the time to do that is really important.
Mm, I love that. That's fantastic. Now let's switch gears back to your own business. So you started this business of your own. What growth strategies did you use to grow your business, to increase that visibility? And then what challenges did you face along the way?
I think strategies, I've always felt really strongly that having the right people in place, and I know that's what you hear all the time, but it really rings true for me, is hiring the person who's going to really truly fit it as a team member. So I'd say that's probably the biggest one, is just having the right fit of person. And then for me, my strategy has been to grow slowly. And I don't know, I think that's also been one of my challenges. But I think the way it's been a challenge is that I could have hired sooner for certain things that I'm not good at. And I think I finally clued into this idea that you really need to hire, you're only going to be good at certain parts of your business. You're not going to be good at the entire thing. So recognize what your weaknesses are and hire for those weaknesses. So I think my challenge was just that I didn't do that soon enough, and I caused myself more stress than I needed to as a result. So that's, yeah.
I can definitely understand that.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly agree. Like, your people, your team is absolutely critical to the success of your business while it's growing. And I know you mentioned, you hear this all the time, and yeah, we do hear it all the time, but it still is something that I think needs to be repeated because not a lot of people retain it or fully get it, that in order to grow your business, if that is one of your intentions, you need your systems, you need your infrastructure in place. And then you need a team to support you, to complement you so that you can focus on your zone of genius and they can focus on those that are theirs.
Yeah.
And as a group, you guys fulfill all of the needs of the business and you can grow it more sustainably.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, yeah. But part of my challenge was that during this time that I've grown my business, I've also had 3 kids. So there's always been this sort of push and pull about, I've, I tried to keep it small while my kids were little because I really also valued spending time with them and being present at home as a mother. So there's always been this push and pull. And I think that's probably quite common for women entrepreneurs who own their own business and are mothers. So, it's impossible to find the perfect balance, and you're always going to go through flux. And there's times when you want to be home more because your kids need you more. And then there's the times when your business needs you more. And I think I have never spoken to a mother who runs a business who has not felt that sort of pull, like you're constantly trying to walk the tightrope between the two. And it's incredibly challenging, to be honest about it. And so that's been, I think, a big part of trying to figure out growing the business is, you know, I've always thought about this balance, and having the right people in place means that I can be home more when I want to be and need to be. So there's this freedom that comes with that. Like, okay, these people who are in the office and part of the team, and they've got this and they can take care of it, versus when I was really starting out and trying to do it all myself, there's no opportunity to say someone else has this. So yeah, it's just a balancing act the whole way along. But I feel like now I've kind of got got it figured out, which is really nice.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. I don't have children, but even just hearing you talk about, I can understand a certain level of want of being home. Like I can imagine what it must feel like to want to be there and be present with your children. But then this feeling of like seeing your business growing, there's a sense of like wanting to like go all in and like really see it through and like a fear of missing out and stuff like that. So I can't even imagine what moms go through as entrepreneurs in addition to having young ones at home, balancing all of the emotions and the mom guilt and like everything that comes along with that. How did you navigate that and to keep it growing slowly at a pace that you felt comfortable with without letting the fear of missing out and like all that type of stuff overcome everything?
Yeah, it's really been challenging for sure. But part of it was I kept my office at home when my kids were little until my youngest went to kindergarten. And we had a little studio kind of outside the house, but it allowed me to be, I could still go inside and be with the kids and take someone to a class, you know, every Thursday morning. I'm out of the office from 9 to 11 because I'm going to a mommy and me class or something like that. So it did allow for a lot more flexibility with that and pop inside and chat to the kids when they're on their way or drive them somewhere. So that was really nice. But it also meant that I never really felt like I could escape my work because it was always right there with me. And so getting an office downtown was so freeing in that regard, but still meant then that I was a bridge away from my kids and just generally less available. But they were all three in school. So I felt like I had that time. And then just this idea of being able to manage my own schedule, I can balance things out and say, okay, this is really important to me to go to on next Tuesday. It's whatever at the school, and I really want to be there. So I'm going to schedule meetings around it. And maybe I'll work an hour the night before in order to make that happen. So being able to manage my own schedule has been really helpful with that too. I can make sure that I'm at the events that I want to be at by just working my meetings around them. So that's nice. I
It's a
think that
bonus of
that's,
running your own business.
yeah, it's a huge bonus though. I can take days off during spring break if I want to, and I do, and just kind of manage that. So that's been really fantastic.
Amazing. Now, what are your thoughts on the importance of collaborating within the industry with other professionals? I've seen in other industries where there's a lot of gatekeeping and wanting to keep things like within the company and like not really collaborate with other people. But I've started seeing that it's quite different in the interior design space. People are a lot more open to having conversations, even with other interior designers, which is amazing.
I am a huge believer in that because I think, why do we all need to make the same mistakes? Why doesn't one of us make it and teach the other ones, don't do this? Or here's something that was really successful, try this. I just think we can all help each other out. And there's so much work in Vancouver. We don't need to be carefully guarding, you know, clients and that type of thing. Like, of course, and I think if you do good work and have a great relationship with your clients, your work is going to speak for itself and your clients are going to come back and refer you and all of that. So I don't really worry about that. So I just think there's so much we can do to help each other out. And I really believe in that. And I personally, will meet with other designers and chat to them about fee structures or hiring or it's just all sorts of stuff that comes up in the day-to-day world of running your own design business. So that to me is really important. And I used to serve on a design panel and it was with other designers from North America and specifically mostly Canadian. But that was also amazing because we'd get together in a location that was none of our hometowns typically. and we would just chat about the challenges that we were going through, and what would you do in this situation, and here's what I've done, try this. So to me, I think our industry definitely benefits from people who share and collaborate and give each other ideas and advice, and I'm all for it. That is, to me, a no-brainer, really.
I love that. Yeah, community is everything. Having open conversations is everything. Like you're
Yeah.
all in it together, learn from
Yeah.
each other, support each other. I think
Yeah.
that's the way to go.
I think it serves everyone, and it even serves our clients, because if one person is doing something well for their client, why wouldn't another client with another designer not benefit from that? So, and also just some more transparency across the industry too is good, so that clients don't feel like it's this weird shady thing with billing and discounts and all of that kind of stuff. So I think the more we all chat about it and people are transparent and open, the better. So yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. Now let's talk about actually working with clients. So, tapping into your interior designer skills now, I'd love to hear about your approach to designing spaces that meet the needs of the clients. And then how do you go about that? Like, do you ever find it a struggle to bring your ideas to the table and like get them to be open to new like trends and new things that they might not be aware of, rather than just going with like cookie cutter things that they might have seen off of like Pinterest that everybody's doing it?
Yeah, I think, okay, well, to start with the first part of your question, how do we work with our clients? Like our very first meeting, we always send out a questionnaire to our clients, and that asks them tons of questions about how they live and the people living in the space and what kind of stuff they do, what their interests are, and really try and get an understanding of the functionality that they're looking for, because that to me is so critical. Do you have little kids? Do you have pets? Do you have older parents who are going to be around or moving in, and all these types of things? Because really our ultimate job is to design a house that works, or a space, whatever the space is, that really works for the people who are going to be inhabiting it. So that functionality is so critical. So really doing a deep dive into that and looking at the space plans and making sure we have tons of experience looking at plans, so we can see whether a space feels a bit too small, or there isn't enough room around a certain zone, or is there a closet in this space because you really need one by the front door, and that kind of stuff. So the nitty gritty of the functionality is really critical. And then the aesthetics is another, that's sort of the second part of your question, is a big part of it. And people see a million images these days on Pinterest and Instagram and whatever other outlets they're looking at, but there's so much visual information out there related to design. So, but the thing you notice is that these huge trends evolve and things become even more trendy because there's so many more images of it. So it's kind of our job to say, well, we love that, but what about looking at it this way? And I think clients are typically open. They've hired a designer for a reason, and they're open to some suggestions and ideas, and it's a collaborative process. We of course want every project to be reflective of the person who lives in it, and we're not trying to impose our aesthetic. Like each of our projects has a personality that is the client, and so they'll come to us with their ideas, and then it's our job to build on that and say, okay, this is the look and feel you're after. How do we make that amazing? And we're not trying to say to them, I think for us, that's the most exciting part of the project, is everyone's got this different idea of what their perfect space is going to be. And so our job is to pull the essence out of what they're looking at and say, okay, this is what's going to make it special and unique for you, rather than just kind of coming from the top down, like, this is what we're doing. We get inspired by the client coming to us with those certain ideas. And then, if they look a little bit too trendy or a little bit too overdone, like you've seen this everywhere, then we'll try and take it, push it into another direction, not another direction, but make it still special and unique. But still, we're going to give them the essence of what they want, because that's what they have come for, really.
I love that approach. Now, we've talked about a little bit industry trends, which there's new ones all the time, I find. So, how do you stay updated with industry trends, but ones that are not just going to be gone overnight? Like, how do you differentiate the ones and then stay on top of everything?
Well, I think it's really truly just always about looking at taking in visual content. So, of course, there's Instagram, which is amazing for design. It's like the perfect platform for looking at a million images. It used to be more Pinterest, and now I'd say we look at Instagram a bit more. Still Pinterest, but just magazines, design books, and being out in the world and seeing spaces that other people have designed and getting inspiration, and being honestly just being in a space sometimes and thinking, what is it that I like about this space? And I think for me right now, I'm leaning into color a little more. I've been in some spaces that just feel really comfortable and welcoming, and they have more color in them. And so that for me is a big one. It's just, what do I like about this space and why? And so pulling cues from that. And then, I mean, for sure, we get influenced by trends. That is a big part of what we're doing. And if I look at 20 years ago, what the trends were versus now, everything's always shifting. It's the same as fashion. And so we're going to be influenced, but we try to stay away from the overly trendy look and identify what is it about this that's not necessarily going to be timeless, and make sure we're trying to avoid that in a way. And I think mixing in some pieces that maybe an antique piece or things that can pull it away from just feeling like it's a moment in time is important.
I love that. Okay, so as an entrepreneur with a very successful interior design business here in Vancouver and whatnot, let's talk about how you unplug today. So now that your kids are a little bit more grown up, you might have a little bit more time for like self-care and taking some time to reset yourself. What do you do to unplug and to regroup on a personal level?
Well, part of that I'd say is just hanging out with my kids. That kind of resets me and grounds me, and I just love being with them. So for sure that. And then exercise, being out in nature. I'm lucky to live close to Lighthouse Park, which is amazing, and I'll go there and take the dogs and go for a big hike or go down to the beach. I think just being out in nature, kind of immersed in it and away from phones and computer screens and driving and that kind of thing, that for me is the biggest reset. And then hanging out with friends, for sure. My husband, yeah, just going out and doing something kind of fun is for me also a big reset. Like, take your mind away from the office and what's happening there and just go and do something fun is for me really restorative. So yeah. And I like to read. I'll do some reading, which I think kind of transports your mind into another world too. So I love doing that.
What are your favorite kind of books? What genres do you like?
Definitely fiction, novels, something that transports you. But I like reading, like we get the New York Times. I love reading that. And yeah, magazines. We get a million magazines. So
I
design
bet.
magazines. Yeah. I think those are fun for just a quick flip through, and you don't have to sit down for an hour. So yeah, just trying to switch your brain off. And I think I'm getting way better at that when I'm not at work, trying to leave it behind me,
Mm.
not bringing it through my day all the time. So, yeah, basically
Mm.
trying to leave the office at the office, really, and the work behind. It doesn't always
Yeah.
happen, but I try.
Do your best, right? Do your
Yeah,
best in the season that you're in.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, if anybody wants to learn more about you, your services, or just connecting with you because they find you an inspiration like I do, where can they find you online?
That's so nice of you. We are sophieburkedesign.com, and then we're on Instagram at Sophie Burke Design as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sophie, for taking the time to join us to share your experience in your entrepreneurial journey, getting to where you're at today, but also giving us some great tips that I know a lot of people tuning in can probably take away and apply in their own journey of building their interior design business. So, thank you.
My pleasure. It's been super fun talking to you. And I'm always open to talking to anyone who's setting out in the design world, trying to start a business. Come and chat to me. I can give you successes, challenges, failures, and I'm always honestly open to it. So reach out if that's you.
Amazing. Thank you.